During one episode of I Love Lucy, a moment unfolded that no script had planned and no rehearsal could have prepared for. Something went so completely off the rails that Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance lost control of the scene. Lucy and Ethel broke character, collapsing into genuine laughter in full view of the cameras. It was real, spontaneous, and impossible to fake. In that instant, the production faced a decision every television show dreaded at the time: stop everything and reshoot, or let the cameras keep running. What followed surprised everyone on set. No one called cut. The scene continued. The laughter audiences still see today is not performance. It's unfiltered emotion, captured as it happened. And behind that choice was a far more serious calculation than it appeared on screen. Before filming even began, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were already earning around $5,000 a week together, a respectable television income in 1951. But they had a different vision for the show. They wanted I Love Lucy filmed on 35mm motion picture film in Hollywood, not broadcast live from New York like most television at the time. That choice came with a much higher price tag than CBS had planned to pay. So Lucy and Desi made a proposal that seemed almost reckless. They agreed to accept a reduced weekly salary in exchange for one thing: full ownership of the filmed episodes. Network executives barely paused. Reruns were considered worthless then. The common belief was simple: once a program aired, it had no future. Audiences had already seen it. CBS approved the deal and moved on, unaware they had just set history in motion. Over the next decade, those 179 filmed episodes would air again and again across the United States, then travel far beyond it. By the early 1960s, Lucy and Desi sold the same library of episodes back to CBS for more than $4 million. A short-term pay cut had quietly turned into generational wealth. It reshaped the business of television in a way no one at the network had imagined. And the surprises didn't end there. Long before Vivian Vance and William Frawley became Ethel and Fred Mertz, Lucille Ball had other actors in mind, people she already trusted. Bea Benaderet and Gail Gordon had worked closely with her on the radio series My Favorite Husband from 1948 to 1951. On that show, they played Iris and Rudolph Atterbury, a married couple whose chemistry and timing felt like a natural foundation for what would later become Fred and Ethel. Lucy and her writers believed the transition would be seamless. When I Love Lucy entered pre-production in 1951, their names sat at the top of her list. Then reality intervened in the most ordinary way possible: contracts. Benaderet was committed to the George Burns and Gracie Allen show. Gordon was locked into other radio and television work. Both wanted the roles, but neither could accept. Still, time softened the disappointment. Gordon would later reunite with Lucy on several of her subsequent series, and Benaderet found lasting success of her own as the lead on Petticoat Junction from 1963 to 1968. The parts slipped away, but their careers never did. Meanwhile, the show Lucy and Desi were building was quietly transforming television from the inside out. When CBS agreed to launch I Love Lucy in 1951, Desi Arnaz often received credit for inventing the three-camera system. But the true architects were cinematographer Carl Freund and producer Al Simon. Both brought years of studio experience and understood how to refine an existing idea into something precise and dependable. They positioned three 35mm Mitchell B&C cameras to operate simultaneously, one capturing wide shots, the others covering medium shots and close-ups. Scenes played straight through, without interruption. Performances stayed alive. Momentum was never lost. To make it possible, Desilu leased the aging General Service Studios on Las Palmas Avenue. The facility was barely functional, but its owner, Jimmy Nasser, allowed the team to rebuild 2 sound stages from the ground up. Seating for roughly 300 audience members was installed, all while meeting strict fire safety regulations. When the work was finished, the result looked unlike anything television had seen before. By 1952, it stunned the industry. A full 20 to 22-minute episode could be filmed in about an hour of real time. Actors stayed in rhythm. Editors received clean, continuous footage. Comedy production became fast, efficient, and repeatable. I Love Lucy had become the most finely tuned machine in Hollywood. The show hit American television like an electric shock on Monday night, October 15, 1951, at exactly 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Families were home, gathered around their sets, settling in for the evening. Within a single year, the half-hour sitcom reached more than half of all television-owning households in the country. Its debut season earned a staggering 50.9 Nielsen rating, with an average audience of roughly 23.3 million viewers during 1951 and 1952. Nothing else of that era began at that level. Then it kept climbing. Over 6 seasons, from 1951 to 1957, I Love Lucy finished as the #1 show in America 4 separate times, an achievement no scripted series had ever accomplished. When the final original episode aired in May 1957, the show left the air still sitting at the top of the ratings. That kind of exit would not be repeated until the Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968, and later Seinfeld in 1998. For early 1950s television, this level of dominance seemed almost unreal. Yet it arrived unfailingly every Monday night. Then came January 19th, 1953. That evening, the nation witnessed something unprecedented. The episode titled Lucy Goes to the Hospital, which depicted the birth of little Ricky, drew an estimated 44 million viewers, about 71.7% of all television households in the United States. The very next day, Dwight D. Eisenhower was sworn in as president. His inauguration broadcast attracted around 29 million viewers. Nearly 15 million more Americans chose to watch a fictional sitcom mother give birth in a New York apartment than a real general take the oath of office in Washington. It was undeniable proof that I Love Lucy commanded the country's attention like nothing else. Just weeks later, the numbers climbed even higher. On March 8, 1953, a single Monday broadcast was watched in 72.6% of all American homes with a television. Nielsen estimated about 15.8 million TV households tuned in, translating to roughly 40 million viewers for just half an hour of comedy. On a typical street in early 1953, if 3 neighbors owned televisions, 2 of them were watching Lucy Ricardo that night. Many other episodes that season hovered in the high 60s and low 70s. The show had become more than entertainment. It was a weekly national gathering, millions of people laughing together at the same moment in living rooms across the country. And the numbers from that first full season made it unmistakably clear. During the 1951 to 1952 season, CBS recorded an average audience of roughly 23.3 million viewers per episode, tied to that staggering 50.9 household rating. In practical terms, 1 out of every 2 television homes that had a set turned on was watching the same program at the same time. This was happening while much of the country was still purchasing its very first television sets. Yet I Love Lucy already behaved like a fixed national habit, something Americans planned their evenings around. No other brand new series of the early 1950s came anywhere close to matching that combination of sheer audience size and market share. Inside the industry, perception shifted quickly. Trade publications and network executives began treating Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz as a new category of television creator, performers who could reliably draw tens of millions of viewers whenever they appeared on screen. The financial numbers confirmed it. By 1953, a single original episode was generating close to $1 million in advertising revenue. Adjusted for today's values, that would be nearly $11 million for a 25-minute comedy. Advertisers selling cigarettes, cleaning products, and household staples were eager to pay the price. Because the show delivered something no other program could, consistent access to more than 40 million viewers every Monday night. Lucy's image soon extended far beyond the television screen. Her likeness appeared on dolls, jewelry, clothing, comic books, and even furniture promotions. What emerged was one of the earliest television-driven merchandising empires. The combination of massive ratings and a rapidly growing consumer market turned I Love Lucy from a sitcom into a prototype, a model for the modern television franchise, where profits increasingly come from everything surrounding the broadcast itself. Then, in mid-1952, Lucille Ball learned she was pregnant, and the news did not arrive as a moment of celebration. Instead, it triggered immediate fear. CBS executives seriously considered canceling the show altogether. Pregnancy on television was viewed as dangerous territory at the time, something that might offend audiences or drive families away. Meetings were called. Tension filled the room. Ending the series was discussed as a real possibility. Jess Oppenheimer refused to accept that outcome. He argued relentlessly that Lucy's real-life pregnancy could become something meaningful and new for the show. After prolonged debate, CBS finally agreed, but only under strict conditions. Every script would be reviewed by a priest, a rabbi, and a Protestant minister. It marked the first time a major American network allowed a pregnancy to be portrayed on screen, and while the shift was quiet, its impact was profound. As production continued, additional rules followed. CBS and sponsor Philip Morris enforced a ban so rigid that no one was allowed to say the word pregnant, not even during rehearsals. Instead, characters used softer language, expecting, having a baby, or the French term enceinte. Yet one small loophole remained. Episode titles never appeared on screen. that allowed newspapers to publish listings with headlines like "Pregnant women are unpredictable" without violating any broadcast rules. It was an odd compromise that revealed just how restrictive television censorship still was, even as the medium tried to move forward. Then came the night that sealed the show's place in history. On January 19, 1953, Lucille Ball gave birth to Desi Arnaz Jr. by cesarean section. At the very same time, an episode titled Lucy Goes to the Hospital aired across the country. More than 44 million people tuned in, roughly 72% of all American television households. Some movie theaters even projected the episode onto large screens, treating it as a national event. The moment saved the show, confirmed that audiences wanted stories grounded in real life, and permanently expanded what television was allowed to show. Of course, I Love Lucy was not flawless. In one nightclub scene, a microphone boom dropped into the frame and remained there for 53 uninterrupted seconds, hovering above the actors as if no one noticed. Early television moved at such speed that mistakes were easy to miss. With a single microphone capturing everything, the crew prioritized audio over visuals. The boom stayed, and viewers noticed, especially because it lingered for nearly a full minute. There were other mishaps. In the pilot episode, Lucy rushed between rooms, and a wall meant to remain hidden briefly appeared on camera. In another scene, a camera itself rolled into the frame during a phone conversation. With 3 cameras operating at once, keeping every angle perfectly concealed was a constant challenge. The pace of filming left little opportunity to correct errors, so these moments remained in the final broadcasts, becoming part of the show's growing collection of small, endearing imperfections. Some mistakes were even more obvious. In Lucy Learns to Drive, the vintage cars used for filming could not run at all. The solution was simple and visible. Thick black cables were attached and pulled into view, clearly noticeable as the cars moved. Modern high-definition releases make those cables even easier to spot, turning the episode into a favorite for fans who enjoy catching old production tricks. Not every unexpected moment was an error, though. In the famous mustache episode, Lucy disguised herself as a man to sneak into a club. During her escape, the fake mustache slipped off. Lucy and Ethel burst into real, unscripted laughter. It wasn't planned. It wasn't written. But the joy was so genuine that the producers left it in. Their natural chemistry and friendship shone through, creating one of the most beloved, spontaneous moments in the entire series. Even continuity details slipped through. Ethel's middle name changed from episode to episode. Roberta in one, Louise in another, May somewhere else. The Ricardos' apartment number shifted from 3B to 3D after the baby arrived. Desi Arnaz's name appeared misspelled as Desi Arnaz for an entire season in the closing credits. Over time, these inconsistencies became trivia, reminders of how fast early sitcoms were produced and how easily small details were overlooked if they didn't disrupt the story. But the biggest shock was still ahead. In September 1953, gossip columnist Walter Winchell went on the air and announced to millions of listeners that Lucille Ball was a communist. The accusation came only hours before filming, just as the studio was preparing to seat a live audience. Panic spread instantly. Sponsors feared the worst. CBS feared the worst. The country was deep in the grip of the Red Scare, a time when a single word could destroy a career overnight. For Lucille Ball, the fear went far beyond her job. She worried about her family, her reputation, and everything she and Desi had built together. It felt as if the ground beneath her was about to give way. The truth behind the accusation stretched back 17 years. In 1936, when Lucy was 25, she had registered to vote as a communist in California. The decision was not ideological. It was personal. Her grandfather, Fred Hunt, a committed socialist, had urged her to do it. Her mother and brother registered as well. Lucy never voted communist, never attended party meetings, and let the registration lapse after 2 years. But paper records have a long memory. In 1952, the FBI located her old affidavit. They also found her name listed as a delegate to the California State Central Committee of the Communist Party. Whether the role meant anything to her no longer mattered. The documents existed, and in that climate, that was enough. Lucy had already testified privately before the House Un-American Activities Committee in April 1952, and again on September 4, 1953. She told them plainly that she had registered only to please her grandfather. She denied having any allegiance to the party, any political interest in it, or any involvement beyond that brief registration. WAC accepted her explanation and cleared her. But once the story leaked, clearance meant little. Whispers spread. Headlines grew louder. Anxiety followed her everywhere. Even J. Edgar Hoover reviewed her file. He examined her testimony and the old registration records. Lucy told investigators directly that she was not and never had been a communist. Hoover allowed the committee's decision to stand, but he kept her file open, a common practice with Hollywood figures at the time. It reflected just how tense the era had become and how closely entertainers were watched when they reached Lucy's level of influence. As the scandal threatened to engulf the show, Desi Arnaz stepped forward. He gathered reporters, network executives, and sponsors and defended his wife without hesitation. Standing in his own home, he delivered a line that would be quoted for decades. He said the only thing read about Lucy was her hair, and even that wasn't real. He called Hoover directly. Hoover confirmed that Lucy had been cleared. Desi shared that confirmation with the press, then walked Lucy out in front of the live studio audience. The crowd rose to its feet. The applause filled the room and washed over her like a rescue. In that moment, the crisis broke. The show survived. Lucy's career remained intact. Television held on to one of its brightest stars because someone who loved her refused to let fear decide her fate. While that storm passed, tensions behind the scenes never fully disappeared. Vivian Vance felt a knot form in her stomach the day she learned she would be paired with William Frawley as her on-screen husband in 1951. She was 42. He was 64. The age difference troubled her deeply, and she didn't hide it. She joked to producers that she was being married off to that old coot, and behind his back she used harsher language. Frawley heard the comments and fired back just as sharply. Insults flew with clockwork regularity, becoming part of the daily rhythm on set. Yet the moment the cameras rolled, they transformed effortlessly into Ethel and Fred Mertz. Between takes, the mood shifted. Silence. No conversation. No eye contact. Just a cold distance the crew learned not to acknowledge. Years later, Greg Oppenheimer explained how deeply Vance resented the age gap and how much she hated the idea that audiences might believe she belonged with him. She even slipped insults into performances, mocking Fred as "Oh Fat Freddy" on air. Each remark widened a rift that never healed during the show's 7-year run. When I Love Lucy ended in the late 1950s, the bitterness remained. Producers considered a spin-off centered on Fred and Ethel. Frawley was enthusiastic, seeing it as a chance to extend his career. Vance shut it down immediately. She said she would rather retire than work alone with him. She believed the Mertzes only functioned because Lucy and Desi stood between them, absorbing the tension. Without that buffer, she was convinced the show would fail. Her refusal ended the project instantly. She even declined a bonus payment just to avoid standing beside him again. Years later, when asked about it on the Dinah Shore show, she smiled and said she had no regrets. The breaking point had come early. Around 1952, Frawley overheard Vance telling producers that audiences would never believe she was married to that old man. The words cut deeply. He had spent decades in vaudeville and expected professional respect, not public humiliation. From that moment on, he gave her none in return. His insults grew more pointed. The atmosphere on set grew colder. People whispered about the feud for years. Frawley never forgot it. His personal struggles only added to the strain. Frawley drank heavily, and Desi Arnaz eventually inserted strict clauses into his contract stating he would be fired if he arrived on set intoxicated. Even with that threat hanging over him, the drinking continued. His hands shook so badly during scenes that he often kept them buried in his pockets. Crew members complained about his temper and sudden mood swings. Arnaz even hired someone to retrieve him from nearby bars he visited too often. The weight of his addiction was felt across the production. Still, when the cameras rolled, Frawley delivered. Arnaz kept him because he was that good, and because he felt a certain loyalty toward him. When Frawley died of a heart attack on March 3, 1966, the news spread quickly. Vivian Vance was out to dinner with friends when she heard. She raised her glass and said, "Champagne for everyone." The table fell silent. Reporters reached out, but she refused to comment and did not attend any memorial events. She maintained that silence for years, a fact confirmed by crew members and even by Frawley's family. Fans who had watched Fred and Ethel bicker and bond on screen for 7 seasons were stunned by the reality behind it. At the same time, another controversy lingered around Desi Arnaz. During the years when I Love Lucy dominated television from 1951 to 1957, Hollywood fixer Scott Bowers later claimed he arranged 2 or 3 women a week for Desi. Bowers, who began as a gas station attendant and evolved into a behind-the-scenes operator, described these encounters in his 2012 memoir. According to him, Desi pursued almost any attractive woman willing to meet him, and many did not even know who he was. The behavior continued even as Lucy's fame soared. Later journalists and biographers corroborated parts of Bowers' account, giving the claims lasting weight. Eventually, the truth could not stay buried. In the mid-1950s, Lucille Ball confronted Bowers at a party face-to-face. As the personal cost of fame, success, and silence finally caught up with the people behind America's most beloved television show, she walked straight up to him and exploded. In front of everyone, Lucille Ball demanded to know how he could dare to pimp for Desi. Years of rumors had been building beneath the surface, and in that moment, the pressure finally broke. Scott Bowers later said he was humiliated, but he defended himself by claiming he only fulfilled requests that were made to him. Investigators and writers who later examined Hollywood's hidden networks confirmed the confrontation, describing it as one of the very few times Lucy publicly acknowledged her husband's infidelity. The whispers grew louder just months later. In January 1955, Confidential magazine hit newsstands with a headline that cut straight to the heart of America's favorite marriage. Does Desi really love Lucy? The article painted Desi Arnaz as a man consumed by excess, alleging encounters arranged through so-called vice dollies, and describing a lurid episode at the Beverly Hills Hotel in which companions were ordered with shocking casualness. At its peak, Confidential reached more than 5 million readers, ensuring the story spread nationwide. The magazine faced lawsuits over countless celebrity exposés, but the stain on Desi's reputation lingered. People talked about that article for decades. More than 20 years later, Desi finally addressed it himself. In his 1977 memoir, a book he wrote with disarming honesty, he admitted that both he and Lucy had been unfaithful. As arguments intensified, their marriage unraveled, and each of them looked elsewhere for comfort. By the late 1950s, he revealed he had not slept in their shared bedroom for nearly a year. The candor shocked readers. Stars of that era rarely spoke so openly about personal collapse, and biographers would later describe the memoir as the clearest account of how their marriage fell apart. Their daughter, Lucy Arnaz, would later describe her father's behavior as a strange and painful contradiction. She said he loved Lucy and his family deeply, yet could not stop himself from pursuing other women. Lucy understood the pattern for a long time, but eventually, she could no longer live inside it. Their divorce in 1960 ended years of tension. Lucy later reflected that life became calmer afterward, as though the emotional storm that had dominated their home finally lifted. The damage, however, had already shaped the family in lasting ways. Even as their personal lives fractured, Lucy and Desi continued making decisions that transformed television. Back in 1951, they had agreed to reduce their combined weekly salary from $5,000 to $4,000, so I Love Lucy could be filmed rather than broadcast live. CBS refused to cover the added cost. Lucy and Desi countered with a deal that would change the industry. They would take the pay cut only if they retained ownership of the filmed episodes. That agreement gave them roughly 80% control of the show. By 1953, their salary had dropped to about $2,000 per episode. It looked like a sacrifice. In reality, it was a gamble that paid off beyond anything television had seen before. The show became a national obsession, and owning the episodes turned Lucy and Desi into more than stars. It made them pioneers. In 1960, they sold the syndication rights back to CBS for $4.5 million, roughly $40 million in today's money. Their company, Desilu Productions, grew into a major force. Everything was shot on 35mm film, expensive, but ideal for reruns. Desilu went on to produce The Untouchables in 1959 and The Andy Griffith Show in 1960. When Desi left the company in 1962, Lucy bought out his shares for $3 million and became the first woman to run a major television studio. Under her leadership, Desilu greenlit Star Trek and Mission Impossible in 1966. Both series would go on to become billion-dollar franchises. Meanwhile, I Love Lucy refused to fade. More than 70 years after its debut, millions still watch it every year. In the United States alone, an estimated 40 million viewers tune into reruns annually. When CBS aired a colorized Christmas special in 2013, more than 6 million people watched. During its original run, nearly half of all television households followed the show each week. In 1953, the pregnancy episode reached 44 million viewers, about 72% of all TV homes in the country. Over time, the series was translated into dozens of languages and broadcast in more than 100 countries. Across 6 seasons from October 15, 1951 to May 6, 1957, it produced 179 episodes and won 5 Emmy Awards. More importantly, it reshaped the future of television. I Love Lucy proved the long-term power of filmed sitcoms, reruns, and ownership. The business model Lucy and Desi created still generates revenue decades later. The show became a global phenomenon, continuing to attract new audiences year after year. Lucy's legacy expanded even further in 1967, when she sold Desilu to Paramount for $17 million, roughly $156 million today. She had spent years running a studio, launching landmark series, and setting production standards that would define the industry. Her decisions around filming, ownership, and syndication permanently altered how television worked. Today, Lucille Ball is remembered not just as a performer, but as one of the most influential figures in entertainment history, a woman whose instincts and courage continue to echo through every corner of television. If you like this video, check out our other videos and subscribe for regular updates on your favorite celebrities.